Let me tell you about the time my neighbor tried to off my entire family. So my parents rented this house when I was 10 years old, and it honestly should have been a red flag as soon as we moved in, because my mom told me that the neighbor's wife would tell her all about how she hated children and how she was glad all of her children were taken away from her, but she was upset because she just got one of them back. So my neighbor, the husband, he used to just say the most insane, off-the-wall things to my mom. He used to call her all kinds of like profane words and awful things in front of us. He didn't care. But the thing is, he would only do this when my dad wasn't around. And one day, my dad didn't park on our street for whatever reason, probably to catch the neighbor. And my brother, who was 3 years old, was playing with a ball in the front yard, and he accidentally kicked it into the neighbor's yard. And the neighbor didn't see my dad sitting on the porch, and he started screaming at my 3-year-old brother, cursing at him and threatening him. So my dad jumped off the porch with a baseball bat and chased after the neighbor, who ran into his house promptly. So then my parents got us a trampoline, and my neighbor decided it was a nuisance and was constantly screaming at us and calling the police on us because we were being too loud, apparently, in the middle of the day. So then he started recording us jumping on the trampoline, and he said that he could because it was his private property. So my mom called the police, and the police said that that was true, that he could record small children jumping on the trampoline and do whatever he wanted with those videos because it was his private property. So the verbal abuse to my mother continued, and my mom's friends seen it, my neighbors seen it, people made multiple reports to police. There was nothing they could do. And then one night, I wake up in the middle of the night because I heard someone knocking on the window, and there's my neighbor with a knife knocking on my window. I was literally frozen in bed, so I go to my parents' room after he walked away, and I heard him on the trampoline, and I told my mom and dad, I said, Mom, the neighbor just knocked on my window with a knife, and now he's jumping on the trampoline. I used to have really bad night terrors, so my mom and dad were like, yeah, go back to bed, we don't believe you. So the next morning I wake up and there's a police officer in my kitchen, and my mom and dad had called the police because our trampoline was literally sliced down the middle. And the police officer asked me to tell him what I saw. He said basically we could probably do something about it because there was a witness, but that if this ever like went to court or anything like that, like the neighbor could contest it because I was only 10 years old. So my mom got a hold of every single kid on the block and called every single one of her friends and family members with children. And we had like a giant boom box. We played music as loud as we possibly could. We put a kiddie pool underneath the trampoline, and we basically just had a huge party. The neighbor started recording us, so a lot of the parents decided to leave with their children because they did not want their children recorded playing in the backyard. So then the neighbor started like doing really crazy things. He started like screaming randomly, just doing weird stuff. He carved like a scary face in our tree. It didn't really bother us. I'm not sure what the point of that was. And one night while my dad was at work, my siblings and I were sitting in the living room with our mom watching Batman, and all of a sudden the power went out. The neighbor had cut the power to our house. My mom picked up the phone, and he had cut the phone lines as well. So my mom made us all hide under a computer desk in our living room because it was as far away from any window or door as she could possibly find for us. So she hides us all, and then she calls 911. She only had a track phone. And then my neighbor calls my mom on her track phone and was like, are you guys okay? Are you safe? And my mom was like, yeah, we're okay. And then all of a sudden, like I think we heard glass break or something. And then next thing I know, he's playing like heavy metal music into our house, extremely loud. My mom really couldn't hear much over the phone. And my neighbor basically told her like, hey, I see him pacing in your yard. I called 911 too. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to come get you guys soon. So then the neighbor said that while she was watching, because her house had like a back deck that was really, really high, so she could actually see into both of our backyards. And she said that she was watching him literally pace around our house and pace around his backyard. She thought he had a weapon. I don't actually remember for sure if he had a weapon or not, but next thing I know, bunch of police officers showed up at my house, and they literally I remember one by one carried us out of the house as fast as they could and got us into a car. They did arrest my neighbor. They said he was on all kinds of narcotics and different types of drugs, and basically were yeah, he probably had the intention of offing all of you. They said he was talking to himself and pacing. When we were walking out of the house, I could hear him screaming. I don't know if he was screaming at us, probably, but I could hear him screaming. So later we learned from the police officers that the neighbor's wife had moved out like weeks or months before he did, and he was literally refusing to leave because he was not going to leave before we did. So my parents promptly moved, and we got a restraining order, and that's the end of that story. I'm not sure what that guy's up to now.